We should start with saying a bit about what we see right now, the impact that AI is already having on Trustpilot, the opportunities that's opening up for our customers. It becomes a topic in pretty much every customer conversation that I'm having, but tell us about what you're seeing.
I think the world of the internet is changing right in front of our eyes. It seems that one of the biggest things in this new era is authenticity and having the notion of like a domain authority. So if you're a brand, what could make your brand appear authentic? So things like having reviews or information about what customers say about their experience, responding to good and bad reviews, like almost an equal measure. All of that basically has a strong influence on how large language models and answer engines work. Then the next thing is, are there other sort of supporting websites that can support you in that endeavor as a brand? Simple answer is yes. So if you have lots of reviews on a review platform like Trustpilot that's open, that the internet can see those things and consumers can see them, the large language models also gather that information. So now what you have is your website saying nice things about yourself and kind of being authentic, and then Trustpilot and your consumers also saying really nice things about you. So the combination of those things has an outweighed influence on how large language models work and how answer engines then surface your brand against a query that a consumer may make.
I think one thing we also see is if you've got a very large volume of feedback on Trustpilot, then whatever the user is typing into a large language model, there'll be something in your reviews that's kind of relevant to that query that folks are asking. So the kind of recency, the quantity, the depth of the reviews that you've got become far more important in this kind of AI world that we're moving into than even 5-10 years ago.
And the large language models really feed off that concept of recency. They're constantly looking to validate on like a minute by minute, second by second basis. So we at Trustpilot see that information. We can see queries that people are making on the internet in a large language model. And then what was the result of what we call citations, and how many citations appeared as a result of that single query.
Can you maybe say in aggregate what a bit about what we're seeing in terms of the number of citations of Trustpilot across all these different tools over the last few months?
It's already in the hundreds of millions on a monthly basis. And that's just set to grow. What's also interesting is the number of click-through. So I know it's the zero-click internet. It's kind of not quite true. But what we see is, yes, click rates go down. But what's fascinating to see is how active that person is in a purchasing kind of mindset or cycle. So we do see that in the old internet, if that's a phrase, people would click through and to read and discover information on your website. In the new internet, people have already done the discovery by the time they click. By the time they click, they're almost in a purchasing mindset. They're coming to purchase. And you can see all of that information today in the Trustpilot data. And that's where it starts getting into, is something also going to change in that new purchasing journey, which I think is where you start to see words like agentic and agentic e-commerce start to surface.
And maybe let's move on to that, because a lot of people think that's where the world is moving towards AI agents doing more things on our behalf. How do you see Trustpilot playing into that agentic future?
I do remember the first time I did put a credit card onto a website and thought, is this credit card going to appear somewhere else that it's not supposed to appear? And then if you remember that evolution, a couple of like mega companies started to emerge. PayPal revolutionized your sense of security of using your credit card online. All of those things radically changed our confidence levels of using the internet, and agentic needs the same. So therefore, you will have to have a situation that merchants are signing up to these platforms, and as they sign up, they'll say, who is their security provider? Who is their credit card payment system? Who is their review platform? Where is their trust score? All of those things are essential for the merchant to basically attest to a Google, an OpenAI, Shopify, Amazon, any of the large marketplaces, Meta, to say, hey, this is a real merchant, and that merchant is not involved in any kind of nefarious, fraudulent activity. And then from there, it's like, okay, that was sign up. But then the platform will check that like on a minute by minute, second by second basis. And therefore, the platforms are looking for lots of additional information Where else can they get the information from? Well, the consumers, the people who are using those brands on a minute by minute basis, they need all that information to be fed back in such that they can say the merchants on our platform that are being used by our agents to automate these purchases, we can stand over those and we can stand over the processes. That's the new world.
The agents themselves are going to be reading what's on Trustpilot as they make their own decisions.
They're already doing that.
What to do.
They're already doing it, and that's what they use as the method for them to determine, is this a merchant that I can make a purchase from? And I think if you look at it in the agentic e-commerce world, the platforms who provide that technology, they do need independent verification and validation of those experiences. So you have an experience with the brand, you have an experience with their platform, and you have an experience with the inanimate thing that we'll call the agent. And therefore, we'll have to do reviews of agents and whether or not that was a good experience or a bad experience. And that will continue to drive the quality of those experiences. But that is where the world is going. You can already see it today. There are some initial agentic e-commerce solutions already existing. You've already seen it in customer support for the last numbers of years. That is basically now an agentic flow. The next generation of that will be a payments flow, and the generation after that will be something that we can't even imagine today. But they will always need reviews, and consumers are always interested to hearing from real people. It's just how do we capture those and make it really easy to make sure those reviews are being surfaced.
Let's maybe talk about AI and trust and the impact so far. So people can see obviously that with AI, you can generate text very easily. And the question I often get is, well, doesn't that mean AI is just going to start writing reviews? And therefore, how do we know that we can really trust the platform? What do you see as the kind of net impact so far of AI on trust?
For Trustpilot has been immensely positive. So when I first joined, I went and met our AI and data science team. So the team had been working on transformer models just like Sam Altman had been back in 2016. Now, we were using them for looking at blasphemy laws and those types of things within the data. So it had been immensely positive to Trustpilot to use AI technology, machine learning technology, data science technology to basically screen out people who are, writing fraudulent reviews, writing gibberish. And therefore, those things stand us in really good stead as, the claim that you can use AI to beat the Trustpilot system is just not well founded. We have many, many ways of making sure fraudulent activity is blocked on our system. And then we basically filter out everything else after the fact. So AI has been a net positive to Trustpilot because it's let us really scale our ability to work against the bad actors.
Yeah, I think what people often underestimate is just how much data there is, or metadata, that describes an individual review.
Yes.
There's all kinds of digital fingerprints that just one review contains. When you're getting as many reviews as we get submitted to the platform, and on an average weekday, it's around 200,000 new reviews just in a day submitted to Trustpilot, then there's a huge amount of data that we can use AI over to spot suspicious patterns. So AI is enabling us to get more aggressive than ever when it comes to making sure the content on the platform is trustworthy.
Completely.
So I guess taking a step back, having a bit of historical perspective, you could ask the question about how relevant is Trustpilot going to be in the AI future? Is Trustpilot going to be more important to the world in 5-10 years time, or less as a result of AI?
It's clearly more important. I think it's obvious from today when you look at how consumers think about the internet and this era that we live in. They want to be able to attest and understand the information that they're using has been built by real people.
Yeah, the way I look at it is AI is difficult to foresee all the ways in which it's going to develop in the next 5-10 years. But the one thing for sure is that there will still be people and there will still be businesses. And I don't think there's any point in time in the future, whatever happens with AI, at which people will no longer be interested in the experiences that other people had with businesses. And that's the essence of what Trustpilot is doing. We're a repository of thousands and thousands of people's experiences with businesses. And I think people are always going to be interested in those. The surfaces through which they learn about them will be different in future. People will find information in different ways, in new tools like Right now it's large language models. Who knows what it's going to be in 5-10 years time. But people will still be interested in the experiences of other people with businesses. And I think as long as that's the case, Trustpilot has a critical role to play as the place where those experiences get recorded.
Completely. And if you look at like Gen X, Gen Z, Alpha, that generation has grown up in the influencer generation, and for better or for worse. But they share quite a lot of content amongst their friends, among social media platforms, TikTok, Snapchat, WhatsApp, whatever it might be. Therefore, they do want to share good experiences about the brands and the consumers and the customers that they work with. That's not going to change. That's going to be continuously something that people will want to do. Trustpilot's goal is to make sure we can capture and help capture some of that on behalf of those brands. If anything, it's going to grow. And you're going to have more information, but the type of information might move away from being text to audio to video to all sorts of other new things. And therefore, it'll be continuous to be even more important, I think, in this future world.
Let's think a bit maybe about how we're using AI right now within our product. Maybe tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a hugely exciting time for us building the product. Things like AI summaries have been one of the most valuable features that our customers really love. And that's just simply the ability to summarize all of the reviews to give a good sense of what's positive, what are things to work on, and give a very clear kind of representation of, on a like up-to-minute, blow-by-blow basis of all of the reviews to give a summary of those to the consumers. Other things we've looked at is helping the people who have to reply to reviews within the platform. So if you're sitting there in a CX team and you're receiving lots and lots of reviews from your customers, quite often you'll find that a lot of that could just be answered through an FAQ or please fill in this form. So we can quickly automate some of the responses to those things. What we do is we draft a response. Think of it as like in an inbox. And then you as a CX agent, customer experience agent at a brand, you can then kind of edit that, modify it, or send it back. So we try to get it like 99% good enough. And for quite a lot of things you do in business, you're just trying to basically quickly send out the ticket. Sorry about that, your delivery is coming next week. Click and send. For other things, you're basically freeing up the team's time then to go and jump on the phone or actually say, oh, this one looks a little bit odd. I, as a person, will spend much more time trying to give a higher quality service. So that kind of automating of responses through AI just introduces massive amount of productivity for our customers who are tasked with responding to reviews for their from their customers. So there's some of the big things. The other part as well is that we also like to compare different brands. So we have this thing called topics. So think about a topic as a way to look at the cosmetic industry, maybe by geo or location. But what you're looking to try to get is how can you compare different brands, different markets across each other. It's actually quite a complicated thing to do. So we use a lot of AI to try to aggregate, automate, and figure out which brands and which sentiment within those brands are things that we can basically describe. So if you're talking about pricing as a particular issue, maybe somebody else uses the word like value for money. Now, to some people, they're the same thing, depending on the context. So we have a lot of AI that's able to pull apart all of the reviews and kind of build up this sense of a topic. And the topic then helps you do comparison of different types of sentiment across your reviews. And then from our data solutions team, we can also use that to aggregate that information and look at a brand by brand competitive situation or market by market in terms of how, like, what are the most topical things coming up in the insurance industry today in Britain versus the US versus the Middle East. We can do those things using AI to basically extract that, and we call that topics.
And can you say a bit about how we're using AI to actually build the products?
Our engineers, designers, anybody who kind of puts hands on keyboard, not me, they're all using AI every single day of the week. So it starts with the design phase. So one thing you can get pretty easily up and running is how do you build a prototype? These ones are actually like real working versions of the software, kind of in an alpha beta zone, sort of in a test area. So not quite the production system, but in lots of cases, they're good enough and close enough. And that just massively speeds up us saying, is this the feature? And a customer saying, that's exactly it. When can I have it?
And I guess what everyone wants to know is what's coming next. So if you think about our roadmap, how does AI sort of play into that?
One thing I'm usually interested in is when you sit within a business, there's lots of additional information that you need before you respond to somebody. Imagine having all of that data integrated into Trustpilot such that when you're sitting there as a support engineer, you have every single thing that you would need. And the bot, Trustpilot's AI agent, is kind of suggesting to you what the next action would be. That action could be, don't respond right now, hand it over to the sales agent, or do respond right now, whatever it might be. Those things start to become possible. I'm usually excited what we potentially can do with the platform.
Ciaran, it's fantastic talking to you as ever. Thank you very much.